Hope versus trust. Learning to trust others means that you not only have an awareness of your own met needs, you also possess a conscience of how desperate you are to get those needs met. When you're desperate to meet a need, you can be easily swayed by the promise of something better than what you have previously experienced. When you are aware of the need, origin or how it motivates you, or how experienced or how it motivates your choice and behavior. You are no longer working with trust. You are holding on to hope. Hoping that someone will meet your needs and trusting is a capacity to do so are two very different things. When you are hoping, you ignore, dismiss, or diminish all of the physical and logical signs that are presented to indicate whether or not you can or should trust the other person. You downplay or reject the signs that suggest that what you want and the other person's capacity to give it to you are separate as oil and water. When you are hoping to get your needs met with someone, more than often than not, you know it will not happen with this person, but you hope you are wrong. When on the other hand, you trust, you see clear evidence that what you need is possible, and the person you are involved with is willing and able to fulfill the need. Remember, the trust requires knowing that you are involved with a good person and they have your best interests at heart. You trust yourself enough to be vulnerable, and you trust the person enough to believe they will not take advantage of you. While trust may have been present with some of the women in the beginning of their relationship with Jay, what I heard in their stories was that when he violated their trust, they then fell headfirst into hoping Jay would change, hoping they were not wrong, to wait for him to change, even hoping they would simply survive their encounter with him. And in the end, for all but one of them, these women gave up hope and chose to see Jay as he really was. They arrived at a rational and honest response to his inconsistent behavior. When someone does not keep risk, when someone does not keep his word or her or promise to you, they experience creates a crack in your trust wall. This wall is a protective device constructed largely by your intuition that governs your ability to make conscious choices that ensure you will get your needs met. Once the wall is cracked, you will have a difficult time knowing and trusting who to let in and what to do to avoid further damage. When you trust, the trust wall is cracked. Trust is the first thing to leak out. Unfortunately, when you have a self-trust leak, establishing intimacy, developing understanding, or having meaningful communication with others become difficult. When you are so busy trying not to make the same mistake again, listening between the lines and looking over your shoulders for clear evidence, you will more often than not miss the subtle clues that the person you have attracted to you is untrustworthy. For all of us, but particularly those who have a crack in their trust wall, it is important to ask, for what reason am I trusting others? If you trust them to meet the unmet needs created throughout a disappointing childhood, chances are you will be disappointed again. Your needs are your responsibility. Expecting others to fulfill within you needs that someone else has not fulfilled does not require trust. It requires deep and effective therapy. It really does. If, on the other hand, you are trusting that they have good character intentions, they will do what they say they will do, and that they will say to use the truth as they know it in the moment, then your work is simply to access the performance data throughout communication, intimacy, and understanding. This does not guarantee that you will not get hurt or be disappointed, because as humans, we will make mistakes. What it means is that even with a crack in your trust wall, chances are you will come out less bruised and smarter. And in life and in love, the ability and willingness to trust ourselves so that we can trust others is one of the greatest strengths. This requires that we remain willing to take the risk of trusting that we get a handle on our fears. When we do not have a solid sense of self-trust, or when we are afraid to risk our hearts, we erect emotional walls instead of healthy boundaries. These walls create a sense of isolation and separation that fuels loneliness. When we are afraid others will take something from us physically, mentally, or emotionally, we develop the need to control everything and everyone. When we can't gain or maintain control, we become suspicious and cynical. We live from a very intellectual space that makes it almost impossible to know or follow our hearts. Trust, an opened experience. Real trust is a heart-centered, heart-expanding experience, while logic is a necessary process that is helpful in developing trust in others. Rationally alone will not deepen your ability to trust. To trust, you must learn how to feel your way through certain experiences. Without feeling an open heart, you are more likely than not to live your present experience through your past. Without the open-hearted space that trust requires, you will experience the worry and anxiety that can rob you of the joy of the present moment. Trusting others is a decision that you must make moment by moment. Trusting others is a decision that you must make moment by moment, knowing that there are no guarantees when it comes to dealing with other people. Sometimes you will make the right decision, and other times you will be way off. And no matter what happens, trust in yourself is the only guarantee you will have. You will be okay no matter what happens. As you work through the process of learning to trust others, it's important to recognize and understand that trust is not about finding the perfect person or the perfectly trustworthy person. Trust is about having faith in yourself, faith in others, and the willingness to work through the pain and disappointment that occurs when your trust is violated. Equally, just because a person violates your trust or disappoints your expectations does not mean they are rendered totally untrustworthy, nor does it mean that your relationship with them must come to a screeching halt. Remember Pat, who experienced a mismatch between her and expectations of Jim? His capacity to meet her expectations, if you recall, she lived in a space where she did not feel that she could trust Jim with her heart, and she did not feel safe emotionally because he seemed indifferent to her needs and requests. After many long and intimate conversations, Pat considered that Jim simply did not know how to hear her and honor her requests because she was working from a different perspective and a different bank of experience. In contemporary conversation, it's quite common for people to say, okay, without you even then having a clear understanding of what they're saying okay to. Are they saying okay to the fact that they have heard what you said? Are they saying okay to knowledge that there's an issue that you want to have addressed? Are they saying okay to what you think they mean? Like Pat, Jim had been a single for a long time. An ex-Air Force man following his years in the service, he was now naturally inclined to report to anyone about his movements or whereabouts. He hadn't had enough of that in the military. What Pat and Jim discovered was that Jim heard Pat check in request as a way of monitoring his movements. Pat trusted that Jim was being faithful. She knew that his work required him to be in many locations throughout the day. But also felt that because of the distance between them, if they did not establish a routine, they would grow apart. Throughout committed communication, they recognized that Pat's fear of abandonment was driving the intensity of her check-in requests, and Jim's fear of being controlled was fueling his resistance. Pat acknowledged that she had trust when Jim left. He would be back. Jim acknowledged that he could be responsive to providing Pat with what she needed without feeling controlled. Together, they worked through what each of them really needed and wanted in order to feel safe and able to trust the other one. Past experiences are used as a fuel to determine whether or not we trust someone. We can end up hurting ourselves by misreading a person's behavior and intentions. The way we usually avoid being hurt is to withhold our trust until the other person provides himself or herself to be trustworthy. However, there is a mismatch between expectations and the capacity to fulfill them. Determining what a person is doing and why can be difficult. In many cases, when a poor response is viewed as a violation of trust, people aren't even aware of the hidden needs that drive their request. Even when they are aware, they often really fail to grasp what's going on. Pat's case is a classic little girl who grew up without a daddy, who sat on the porch waiting in vain for their daddy to come. Often have a really time with people, especially men who are tardy or unaccounted for. Tardiness or an unexpected disappearance can trigger the memory of sitting on a porch, sitting at the window, sitting at the kitchen table, dressed and waiting for the daddy who never comes. Then when someone is late or makes an innocent mistake in a relationship, the rejected child gets triggered and is prone to go off the deep end, believing the other person is being dishonest or manipulative, and therefore I can't trust what you do or what you say. However, the real underbelly of the upset is caused by one person's childhood experience and has nothing to do with the other person's trustworthiness. In situations like those related to trusting others, there's a overwhelming exchange challenge. Trust requires that you give something without knowing what you will give in return. When you give your trust, you expect that your needs and expectations will be met, even if you don't know when or how, or even if they will actually occur. Often this results in a hypersensitivity to what gets done and how it gets done. When you add to this equation and miss a mismatch of perceptions, unmet needs, the human factor of poor communication, and the propensity of human beings to make mistakes or be less than diligent in their speech or actions, trusting others can be a gut-wrenching, nerve-wracking experience. Thank you for watching. Happy guys.